What's up, rotters, and welcome back to Brainlit, the podcast that takes a deep dive into the best and worst horror films of the 80s and 90s. I'm Stevie, your VHS veteran. This is the penultimate episode of Season 3 of Brainrot, and I feel like we've still only scratched the surface of the abundance of 80s and 90s trash to pieces out there waiting to be exhumed. Hello to new listeners, welcome to the trash heap. It's lovely to have you, and I hope you enjoy the back catalogue of slimy B-movie bangers we have to offer. A quick Patreon update. This past weekend, we released January's episode of Future Frights with Matt Draper, where we give our spoiler-free thoughts on fresh movies Megan, Skinamarink, Next Exit, Watcher, and Sorry About the Demon. So you can check that out now on the Cellar Dweller tier. Spoiler alert, we both stan Megan. This week, I have the honour of being joined by Toni Piluso, the brains and smile behind the incredible Hack the Movies YouTube channel and podcast. I've loved Tony's content for a long time, and so having him become a rotter was such a coup for me. We sit down to chat about New Line Cinema's first dabble into the horror genre as a production company, Alone in the Dark from 1982. This home invasion slasher doesn't get enough attention. In my opinion, it boasts a cast including Donald Pleasence, Martin Landau, and Jack Palance, and has, in my opinion, one of the greatest twist reveals in horror. One that actually inspired the twist of a very big early 2000s slasher, but doesn't get the credit. If you haven't seen it, do go and seek it out, because I think rotters will get a lot out of it. And also, the battle of heavyweight overacting is a delight to endure. So, hit the lights and let's get started.
Anything can happen when you're alone in the dark.
Are you afraid of the dark?
Sometimes.
Sort of fun.
What was that? When I was a little kid, I was scared to death to be alone in the dark.
Alone in the Dark, starring Jack Palance, Donald Pleasence, Martin Landau, Dwight Schultz, Erland Van Lith. Alone in the Dark, from New Line Cinema.
Tony, welcome to Brainrot. Thank you for being here.
I am so happy to be here at Brainrot. It was a dream come true. I remember being a little kid listening to Brainrot. I was like, one day I'll be on that show. And by the way, I'm sorry if you hear the air raid siren in my neighborhood going off.
America.
No, it's the only town that does it. Like, I'm the only town that still uses an air raid siren to alert the volunteer firefighters. Like, everyone else I know, they're like, oh, we get a message on our phone. I'm like, oh, you don't have a loud siren that makes it seem like you're about to get bombed from the sky? Anyway, I don't know if people will pick up, but if you do hear it, I apologize.
No, I can hear it now. Can I?
Yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I've never heard an air raid
hearing
siren.
It all hours of the day or early in the morning or in the middle of the night. It's great. It's great.
Wow, fun. But since I'm going to start with, because you're a first-time guest, I'd like to ask your origin story, I like to say. So
origin.
Yes.
Origin. Okay.
Yes. So your relationship with the genre, where it started and where you're at, really.
That's a good question. I mean, horror's just been in my life so long. I talked about it a lot. Like, Halloween was a big one for me as a kid. Alien is what got me interested in filmmaking. Yeah, there's no like one real point for me to identify. I'm like, that's when I fell in love with horror. It's just always been there. And my family was like real big into horror. Like, my grandfather used to rent like science fiction and horror movies all the time. So it's just been something that's always been around. It's something I like. It's something I have made. Like, I've made short horror films. I made what I think is the definitive version of Night of the Living Dead, Hack the Living Dead. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I haven't seen that one.
That was from 2021 or 2020. When I did that. It was definitely during like pandemic stuff. Yeah, I digitally added myself to Night of the Living Dead.
Oh my god.
Me and George Romero, we did a really good job. We did a really good job on that movie. He
Yes.
shot his scenes a little earlier than mine, but I think
Yeah,
I
sure.
really added a lot to the movie. There was a lot that was needed in Night of the Living Dead, and I think we all agree that it's me. So I added it.
Yeah.
I added it.
Yeah,
But yeah, no,
that
I
combined legacy.
yeah, I just love horror. I've always have. So yeah, I'm sorry if that's not a very good origin. It's just like, I've just always kind of been there.
No, it's that thing. But also, when you mentioned that, like your grandfather used to have them around and stuff, and it's that exposure at a young age, and that's what makes a lifelong horror fan. Either you take to that, or you don't when you're young, and it's just you're just one of those people.
Or you find it later. Some people find it later.
People do. Yeah, especially with when you talk about films like Scream and stuff, because I forget. Obviously, I was a huge horror fan when Scream came out already. Yeah. And I knew who Wes Craven was and all that, but that created an entire generation of its own of first-time horror fans. And so, yeah, you can come to it at any point. But that's why I've done this podcast, looking at the lower budget, the earlier 80s, the stuff that I used to spend hours looking at the shelves of all these amazing covers but terrible films and just devour them. It was they became the babysitter, especially in the 80s when things were a bit, looser. But talk to me then about Hack the Movies and when that kicked off.
Technically, Hack the Movie started in like 2010. The first movie we ever reviewed was The Last Airbender. In a parking lot at a movie theater. And it's funny because my friend, the cinema snob, Brad Jones, he actually reviews movies sometimes in his car in the parking lot of movie theaters. But there was an old YouTube channel called Film Pigs, and they were the first ones I saw who were like, because I knew about like Nostalgia Critic and stuff who did the more produced reviews, but I saw those guys and they would literally just set up a camera in their car and talk about the movie they just saw. So it started around then. It would be a friend of mine worked at a movie theater, so he'd get us free tickets, and then we'd set up the tripod in the parking lot. We talk about the movie. And then I started doing more produced reviews, and I did it pretty much through most of college, just because I was, I didn't have a lot of money. I was in film school. I was filming stuff, but I would always get like miserable if I couldn't film things. So I'm like, I got to do something. So like, I'll just film myself talking about movies and me and my friends. And it was kind of that for years. No one watched. For many, many years, it was mostly on Blip, good old Blip.
Yeah.
It kind of evolved.
Trailblazing.
At one point, I was doing a lot of character stuff, which was a lot of fun. I had to get rid of those characters when the show blew up because
as in you created characters that you would present as.
I created characters that were like parodies of things that were going on in nerd culture. So
okay,
but like people. Like, so I ended up being on Cinemassacre. I worked behind the scenes for them for a long time. And then we ended up having that show, Rental Reviews. And yeah, a lot of people would then come to my channel and see me play these horrible characters, not realizing it was a character. Right? I'm like, is this really what you think? And I'm like, no, I'm acting. I'm using a different accent. I'm dressed like an ass. Like, no, that's not really me. But yeah, then Rental Reviews ended kind of abruptly. But the set, we pretty much built, and a lot of the things on the set were mine. Like a lot of those tapes are ones that me and my grandfather used to rent from this old video store. Like I still have like one of them. You see some of the labels, they'll say Brantwood Video, because when that store closed down, he just bought most of their tapes.
Oh wow.
So I was already filming on that set anyway, doing my little stuff, and a lot of the Cinemassacre fans were slowly coming over. And then after Rental Reviews ended, I started doing kind of the same show, which isn't the most original concept. I mean, Siskel and Ebert kind of invented video reviews. But yeah, and then it blew up, and it's been doing pretty well. It's had some ups and downs. But yeah, it's doing really, really well right now.
No, I know, and I'm really happy for you. I just think it's great. I love your content. I think it's fantastic, and that's why I'm so stoked to have you on. And now the film we're going to be talking about, Alone in the Dark from 1982. This was a first-time watch for you, right?
Wait, Alone in the Dark? I watched the one with Christian Slater.
No, you did not.
Dorff. And no, I'm kidding. I watched the Tubi original Alone in the Dark. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, the Jack Shoulders.
There are a few with the title. Yes.
Yeah,
Jack Shoulder.
there's a few, and then you count the video games,
And then the
movies based off
game.
the
Yeah.
video game, yeah. Alone in the Dark. By the way, not a good title because no one is actually alone in the dark. It's actually
Not
like
once.
yeah, there's actually a group. I think there's like one guy in the hospital who's alone in the dark at one point.
Yes.
I get
Yeah,
there's
it
like a
should be,
blackout, but no one's actually alone.
No, it's crowded in the dark.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crowded in the dark. Yeah, directed by Jack Shoulder, who I interviewed on my show.
Right.
It's actually one of the only episodes that isn't on YouTube because it got copyright claimed. But you can listen to it on the podcast feed or on Odyssey. Yeah, Jack Shoulder, he came on my show. He directed my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie, Part 2.
Number 2.
Which I loved, and he saw my little mini review of that. He liked that, and then a fan of mine got us in contact with each other. So yeah, I had him on for Wishmaster 2 because he wrote possibly one of the best scenes ever in a film, where a guy wishes that his lawyer would go fuck himself.
Don't please that scene.
And then the genie makes that literally happen. And I had to congratulate Jack. I'm like, Jack, well, what did it feel like when you wrote the greatest scene on Earth?
I know. But even the way they do it is completely anatomically impossible, but you just go with it. It's like...
but yeah, Jack was a really, really great guy. I wish I kept in contact with him. Last time, in my interview, he said he was working on a vampire movie. I forgot to check in and see what happened with that. But yeah, so he's a really cool dude. But he mentioned a couple movies that he had done that I hadn't seen. And I believe Alone in the Dark was one of them. So yeah, it was fun to actually, I don't think I've seen this before. I don't remember it. I definitely know what it is. I've seen like the hockey mask and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a really, really good time watching this.
Yeah, I don't think enough people know about this. It's even been referenced because Jamie Blanks took the idea of the bleeding nose and put that into Valentine, and that's what completely referencing this.
I'm really, really mad because I just shot my Valentine review early, and I didn't know that.
There you go.
And I didn't even click together when I was watching it today. I'm gonna, you know what? Whenever this releases, I'm gonna throw this clip in the episode.
Yeah, there you go.
But no, you're right. The nosebleed is a lot like that. Yeah.
And that's where he took that from. And we mentioned just before we started recording that this was, New Line had, obviously they were a distribution company for years before this, and this was their first foray into horror. They'd produced a couple of films as a production company before this. I think a John Waters film and another one. But this, as their first foray into horror, just before Nightmare on Elm Street as well. What a start, right?
Yeah, can we talk about this cast real quick?
Right, it's insane.
Jack Palance, Donald Pleasence, Martin Landau. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, that is... Those are three
Big
powerhouses right there.
And they're all, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because they're all of that, a similar generation, and they all of that specific type of acting where you can see they're all trying to be the biggest as well.
Yes,
it's about chewing the scene.
Because Jack Palance, he was more known for, I know he was in like a couple biblical stuff. Like I think he's in Barabbas. But yeah, I think he did some Westerns too. Yeah. But he wasn't a stranger to horror. He's in one of the Dracula, Dan Curtis.
That's right, in the 70s.
But yeah, this is kind of like a different role for him to play. Martin Landau, I think he had been in some weird stuff, but like Donald Pleasence is almost playing a parody of Dr. Loomis.
I know. I know. And it's brilliant.
All they needed to do was give him like a wig and he'd be like the opposite of Dr. Loomis, but like whereas Dr. Loomis is like, there's no hope for Michael Myers. He needs to die. We got to lock him up forever. He's the worst. His character in this, well, what's his name in this? Sorry. Dr. Leo Bain is like, oh, these are Voyagers. They're just misunderstood, and I'm gonna talk and I'm gonna reason with them, and I'm like, oh my god, it literally is.
It's like, amazing.
It's so funny.
And he's really unorthodox. Again, I mean, fucking Loomis is so unorthodox. Like, he's super off the books what he does throughout that entire franchise. But, and he's just stoned throughout the whole thing as well. He's just like, do you mind if I smoke? It's good herb. And so it's just Donald Pleasence having the best time being Donald Pleasence. That's all it is. Just for anyone who hasn't seen it, how would you summarize the film?
Okay, I got it. Old people, am I right?
Is that it?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of troubled older gentlemen at this asylum. They're very upset that their previous doctor who was taking care of them has left. They all assume that he's been murdered, and they want to take out their vengeance on the new doctor who was assigned to them. And luckily, there's a blackout that allows them to break out of the prison and hunt down the new doctor. And our villains are, what is it? Martin Landau is Byron, the preacher.
The preacher, yeah.
Sutcliffe. There is Ronald Fatty Elster. He is what on our show we call a Cuties fan. And then there's John Bleeder Skaggs. And Jack Palance is just Frank Hawks. He's like a prisoner of war, right? He wasn't like a straight up murderer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was, and they've all got their different backgrounds. And they're all there's quite a range. What I really like about it is in that time in the 80s, it's 1982. This is when it's so flooded with the cookie cutter slashes, and this one, it kind of toes the line between a home invasion movie and a bit of a slasher. And actually, there aren't that many kills, but when there are kills, they're pretty epic.
It was originally like the mob was going to use them to kill people.
That's right, the mafia.
The mafia, and then they're like, you know what, this budget is not, we can't do a mafia. And also, I mean, haven't the Italians been demonized enough? I think that's offensive. Yes. So I'm glad they said no to that. But yeah, no, you're right. They could have just made another generic, this guy broke out, and now he's killed people. Because Jack Shoulder, I think he edited The Burning.
Yes, that's right. The year before, yeah.
And there were, I mean, I had to check which came out first, Friday the 13th Part 3 or this movie. I'm like, oh, which one did the hockey mask first? I'm like, oh, Friday the 13th got him. Friday the 13th did it first, technically, months before.
Oh, wow. There you go. But I really loved it, because I haven't seen this for decades, and I really loved seeing it again, and especially because there were just moments that I always remember. One is the mental hallucination moment when the monster pops up, which apparently I only found out this time around was designed by Tom Savini.
Oh, nice.
Just that one moment, the creature, and apparently he just stuck like Rice Krispies on someone and painted it.
There's like an hallucination in the very beginning.
Right.
Martin Landau
he
walks into a diner and he's hearing stuff about God, and then like Donald Pleasence is the cook, and there's frogs raining, and it's to show that he's a crazy person.
Right, of course.
But yeah, there's that. Yeah, they throw, because we find out that girl Toni, the sister, she had a nervous breakdown originally.
Yes.
And the stress of this is kind of bringing some stuff back. So
yeah, she's triggered. Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't do more with that. I'm shocked they didn't do more with that.
Well, I want to know why that is hallucination.
That's a good question.
What did she see? What traumatized her? Who hurt you?
I wonder, because she's like anti-nuclear power.
Yes. Oh gosh, do you think someone like got radiation burns?
Or maybe she's just thinking about it too much.
Yeah, maybe.
That's funny. It is funny to go back and see all these movies that like hate nuclear power.
Oh wow.
And then now it's like, hey, it turns out it was actually cleaner and safer than most of all the other powers. It's just there's a problem with the weight. That's the problem with nuclear power.
Focus on the asbestos. It's fine.
Yeah. Other than a few meltdowns, that's usually just poor. That's usually human error. Other than meltdowns, the problem with nuclear power is the waste. But it is funny when you go back and people are like, yep, the world's going to end. The nuclear energy is going to destroy everyone. We got to protest.
Yeah, I mean, Troma's whole first decade was about toxic waste. And then you've got like Chud and all these things. It was it was Vietnam and nuclear power. That was like the two big things.
And I get it. It was scary. Like, I understand. It's scary. Yeah. But like now it's just like, it's funny looking back and it's like, oh yeah, it wasn't too bad. Yeah, so that's
but he's had his big vision, and that's and I realized later on that Donald Pleasence, obviously, because he's an unorthodox doctor, he kind of says to keep everyone in line, he says some pretty crazy shit like behave or I'll cut you in two and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, he
and
like
in this
talks
moment,
to
he's
them
got
on
big...
their level, pretty much.
Yes, yeah, that's his method. And I mean, it's debatable whether it works or not because it doesn't go that well once the lights go out.
Also,
but then, go on.
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking of Frank Hawks, Jack Palance. Because again, he was a prisoner of war. He probably killed a lot of people because he was a soldier. I'd be a little pissed off and like, all right, well, we're gonna put you in the same room with an arsonist, a serial killer, and a child molester. Have fun. It's like, hey, I killed people. Like my killing of people messed me up, and it's a little different than purposely slashing people and lighting things on fire. And the child molester, I'm like, I feel like I should not even be in the same wing as that guy.
Yeah, mine was patriotism.
Yeah, I got like forced to do a lot of horrible stuff. I don't belong with these guys.
Yeah, they're up on the 3rd floor. Yeah, because obviously we've got Dan Potter played by Dwight Schultz, they've recently moved to the area and he's going to take over, as you say, he's going to be the new doctor. Yeah. And these guys are up on the 3rd floor, and when we see them, I mean, it's classic sort of offensive 80s acting all the way through, isn't it? Of the insane asylum. Everyone's... we've got Lynn Shay, of course.
You know what's funny about the Lynn Shay thing? I've been rewatching the show Millennium. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Show. With
the sister show to the X-Files. It's not really a spin-off because it was his own thing.
It's Chris Carter though, right?
Yeah, it crossed over eventually in a terrible episode. But anyway, there's an episode where they go to an insane asylum and the receptionist turns out to be one of the patients.
Oh, there you go.
And I'm like, I wonder if they got that from Alone in the Dark.
I don't know if I've told this story before on the podcast. So there was back in the day, in the early 2000s, there was it's still on actually, I think, but there's a medical soap drama in the UK called Holby City, and they always have guests on for each episode where they get injured, and that's that. So I was doing an episode of that, and we were filming on an abandoned psychiatric hospital. That's where we were filming because that's where my character got hurt. But a working psychiatric hospital was just opposite, and that was the only place where we could go to the toilet because they didn't have working toilets. And so whenever you needed the toilet, you'd have to go over to the psychiatric hospital. And I went up to the desk. I can't believe I only just remembered this. So I went up to the desk and I said to the lady, can I use the toilet? And she couldn't, it was like she couldn't speak, and she was like, and she was like nudging her head towards the counter, and I was like, what's happening? And I said, can I use the toilet? Which way is it? And she was like, I could see she was really struggling, and she did it again. Then I saw a little sign that said, please ring the bell. And so I was like, okay. So I hit the bell, and then she went, hello, how can I help you? And I was like, nope, I'm good.
Oh no.
So, but no, it was an exercise. They were integrating them. They had them doing certain things in the garden and things like that.
So in her mind, she's not allowed to talk until the buttons hit. Okay.
Until the bell goes. And it turns out her supervisor had just gone to the toilet, which I was looking for. So normally they are supervised. That I just remember that though. But it's a nice little gag in this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we don't know what's going on because she's being a little bit odd. But then when she
she's
says
like, no,
that he's invisible,
he's available, but you can't see him. He's invisible.
Yeah.
I'm afraid you can't see Dr. Bain.
Oh. Well, do you have any idea when I might be able to see him?
You can't see him at all.
Why? Isn't he here?
No, he's here.
Oh, then, do you have any idea when he'll be free?
Leo's always free.
Is he free now?
He's always free.
Then why can't I see him?
Because he's invisible.
And he's like, I'm sorry, what? But, she's just one of those Voyagers, as they call them.
Right, the Voyagers. Yeah.
I will say, as interesting as the killers are, the main characters don't really do it for me. Yeah. And I think it's funny because it seems like they didn't want to kill the core family. So the movie just keeps throwing in other characters to get murdered.
Babysitter, sister,
the babysitter, the this, the that, the cop guy that shows up, and
detective.
It's like,
yeah.
But it's like, okay, but this just something never really clicked with the leads. I don't know. Maybe that was me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I didn't care about them that much. Although the little girl is my favorite character.
Although in real life, that little girl would be murdered right away. She had no sense of danger. I'm sorry. If I came home and there was
Insane.
someone sitting there like that, I'm like, oh, I'm being murdered.
Right, yeah, that's me, done.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, you've obviously killed someone, and I am next. Awesome. See you later.
Yeah. I love the setup, though, of this one inmate that is Skaggs, or he's known as the Bleeder.
The Bleeder.
It's a really chilling idea, actually, that there's this guy, we never see his face. When we first see him, he's sort of stereotypically scratching the walls. And so his thing is, whenever he strangles a victim or a woman, his nose bleeds, just, I don't know, from adrenaline or whatever like that.
Yeah.
And it's great because they pepper it throughout without ever really making it like this is going to be an important plot point, which is great.
Yeah.
But they mention it enough times for you to know.
When there is a twist later, you're like, oh, shit.
Yes.
Like, I actually had forgotten. So when the twist eventually comes, I'm just like, oh, the whole time I was like, I literally at one point I'm like, wait, which one was the hockey mask guy? Where'd that guy go? By the way, there's some very misleading posters. He literally wears that hockey mask in one scene that I can remember.
Yeah, outside when they're looting. Yeah, well, that's the thing. So there's there's the blackout.
Yes.
That happens, and this town was ready to. If there are fires, everyone is stealing. Everyone.
I mean, first off, God bless America. We are known to do that. But like to the extent that they're doing it, there's lights out, blackout, like kind of like riots and whatnot. Like, hey, we're taking advantage of the situation. But the way they were rioting, it's like, oh, these people were angry about something to go to this. They're not just like smashing windows and grabbing stuff. They're lighting stuff on fire. It's like,
a demonstration.
It's like the lights just went out. Like, this is different than like the other riots and protests and stuff we've seen recently. These people are like, oh, the lights went out. Oh, I'm gonna burn down the convenience store.
Shit down.
Why not?
Yeah. And and obviously we'd had the foreshadowing because the porter had made a big deal about, oh, electricity, hey, how amazing is this? But he's showing, this is how we keep all the inmates in. We've got no backup, apparently, just electricity. We just rely on electricity.
You want to put a lock on a door? Do you have a backup generator? No, we're on the grid. It's like, all right, you might want to have a generator because if the grid goes down, like, we'll be fine.
But this film also got me Googling, can landline telephones work without electricity? And it turns out they can. So I thought I'd caught them out because I was like, they're using the phone a lot. But apparently they don't need electricity, which is, in my head, that's kind of crazy. But
yeah, now think about like the old
different energy.
The old timey ones, yeah. But eventually there were, because we grew up with like the cordless phones. I think those needed electricity. So I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's actually.
But I was like, hang on a second. There's me trying to catch a film out from 40 years ago. Although I didn't catch it out, but I kind of went. You know, when the girl does come home and Fatty, as they call him, is there, the paedophile, which is really awkward, and you're like, no, do not do it, do not touch her.
You know what's funny? I call those people Cuties fans on YouTube.
Oh yes, yeah.
To get around live on YouTube and stuff. But then he calls her a cutie, and I was like, oh, I feel uncomfortable now. I feel uncomfortable now.
But this is the day. Well, of course, we've had the murder after the looting, and that was a very 80s thing we saw sometimes. The sort of three-pronged sort of soil tenderizer who rips out the guy's throat. I like that.
Well, there's another
Santa Claus uses that.
Oh, okay.
CLAWS.
Yeah,
in the
but
90s.
there's another...
Halloween 5.
Halloween 5. That's it.
There you go.
He has a bigger one, but you're right.
Yeah, it's a bigger one.
Halloween 5,
it's one of those.
I do like when he does kill that guy, and the other three are kind of creeped out by John the Bleeder. They're like, well, that's fun, John. Bye.
Right.
We're gonna go
He's not
now.
Quite part of the group, is he?
Yeah, they're like, you kind of came along with us, but we gotta go.
But I'm a preacher, and I fought for this country, and you're the Bleeder.
Us and the pedophile, we're gonna get in the van. You
and the
too much. So they take off to go after the doctor, and the Bleeder just goes about his merry way.
But as you say, he sort of disappears, and we don't really question it that much because we often just see one of these people at a time. Whether it's, as you say, cutie lover in the house. But this is the problem for me, is that's the next day, and the little girl goes to the fridge, takes out and pours a big glass of milk, and I'm like, that would be spoiled. Because it's at least 13, 14 hours later, it's been sat there. She's be like, "Bleh." Yeah, just chunks coming out of her mouth.
Yeah, and around this time is when I think the babysitter and her boyfriend get killed, right?
Yes. What's her name? Bunky?
Yeah, I think her name's Bunky or something. Hold on, let me. Yeah, Bunky. Carol Levy.
This is a great scene.
This is a pretty good scene. Yeah, with the knife coming up from above the bed, underneath the bed. That was pretty good. Although the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, just jump off the bed. Like,
there is that as well.
The bed.
And like, I'm not saying she deserved it, but she could have avoided it.
She didn't deserve to die, but it's like when she did die, it was like, well, yeah, saw that coming.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
But yeah, that's a pretty tense scene, and I saw there were some posters that use that as part of the selling point. I saw, there's a poster of like her in a bed with a knife coming up. At some point,
that's interesting though, because that's so not the tone of this movie, and I think that would be such an off sell. There's a bit that we jumped past was when they're all in the van, sort of Home Alone style, stalking around the town, and they hit the postman, and he like flies like Peter Pan.
Right. They're just going around being real assholes for a bit.
Yeah.
But at some point, Toni gets like arrested for doing that nuclear protest.
Right.
And she gets out of jail. She meets a new friend.
Mm-hmm. Tom. This is Tom. So he was at the protest.
He was at the protest too. And she's like, "Hey, Tom, I guess we're friends now. Hang out with us.
Come back to mine for dinner." I also love that this town the next day aren't talking about the murders that happened. So the town has burnt up. This is all in the matter of 8 hours. There have been 3 murders, fires, and looting, but everyone is like back to normal, happy, sort of chilling.
Again, look. It's actually mentioned many times, but I grew up in Philadelphia. And I've lived in the suburbs, and I've been in blackouts in Northeast Philly and blackouts in the suburbs. And sure, I'm sure some people did some crimes and whatnot, but I've never seen anyone go, the lights are out, time to burn everything. I've never seen that. So yeah, it's still bizarre. And then for the town to go like, wasn't that something? Anyway.
Yeah. Remember last night? Wasn't that crazy?
Well, when everything was on fire and a guy got his throat ripped out, now there's mental patients running over mailmen. Like, should we talk about this?
That 8-hour purge apocalypse. Yeah, cool.
It really is like the purge happens. It's like, okay, there needed to be some other catalyst for the whole town going crazy like that.
Oh gosh. But I do enjoy that whole bit where Bunky's boyfriend gets dragged under the bed and the knife. It's cool. Apparently, when she's lifted up outside by the neck, apparently he just did that. There's no special effect. He lifts her up by the jaw. Could. I
mean, wrestlers do it. Oh, but speaking of wrestling, he does like a backbreaker on the guy earlier.
The porter.
But yeah, as long as you're not actually putting pressure on the windpipe, if you're just hand steady. Yeah. And she's
just the jaw.
Look at that guy and look how skinny that girl was. It was probably real easy to get her up in the air.
Yeah, true. No, that's fair.
But no, I can totally see. As long as he's not crushing her windpipe and he was big enough to support her, I can definitely see that.
She survived. I know that. She survived.
Yeah, she's alive.
Yeah.
We need proof that she survived. We're gonna call Jack Shoulder in, like the director of Cannibal Holocaust. We're gonna make him explain himself. Did this woman really die? He's like, no, it was an actor. Was
that the last shot you shot? But this Tom guy that she met in jail, which is always promising. They hit it off, and she invites him back to the family home. And they're all it's still the blackout because they're having dinner by candlelight, and this is when we get the random detective coming over to check because we need another kill. And this is more the slasher style where each kill is very different because he gets done by an arrow.
A crossbow, he shoots him with a crossbow.
Yes.
They attack that house with the crossbow a couple times.
Right.
But that's how they know. And then they just leave him out there, which I felt bad for the guy.
Yes. Well, you know what this town's like in a blackout. You don't want to go outside.
Yeah, you know what? Good on them. I bet you that wasn't even a detective. That's just a guy pretending to be a detective to go around looting
and loot their house. Yeah, probably. But this is when it turns into more the home invasion style. Obviously, this previously would have been a mafia moment, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, no, I was seeing how inspirational this actually is. This does seem like a lot of like Your Next. And a couple
Your
other
Next is a good call
with the bow, but the
especially
arrow.
with the arrow. Yeah.
It's funny for a movie that's not talked about that much. It does seem like it was. Yeah, you're right. It didn't get a DVD release until 2005.
Right.
I don't know if it was even on VHS. I assume it was, but yeah. And then Blu-ray not till September 2021.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see why so many people were taking things from this because I don't think a lot of people.
No one's going to see it.
Does anyone know what that movie is? No. Okay, good.
Cool. Okay, so the killer bleeds from the nose whenever. But yeah, so it's funny though because I don't really know why everyone descends on this house. Obviously, we get what's his name, Loomis. That's what I'm gonna call it.
Donald Pleasence's character.
Yeah. So he goes over there to check on them. I can't really remember, but for some reason they all descend on this house.
I guess because he knows that they want to kill the doctor.
Kill the doctor. Yeah.
Also, by the way, I'm sorry, real quick. I think I know why Alone in the Dark was released on DVD finally in 2005.
Oh.
Because that's when Uwe Boll's Alone in the Dark came out. So I guess they were trying to... It's one of those where they tried to trick people.
Oh, I hate that. But this is a good movie, so that's fair. But it's when something like Paranormal Activity comes out and you see immediately available for streaming. Paranormal Entity.
I have a review of Paranormal Entity.
Oh, there you go.
The biggest shock last year. So yeah, I reviewed, what's his name? Shane Van Dyke's movies, Titanic 2 and Paranormal Entity.
Yeah.
And I hadn't kept up with like what he was doing. I know he did some kind of bigger stuff on Netflix, but he's obviously Hollywood nepotism. His grandfather was Dick Van Dyke.
Mm-hmm.
And he made these terrible, terrible, terrible movies. And then I saw, what's that movie? Don't Worry, Darling. And I saw his name in the credits, and that was the biggest twist of the movie for me. I'm like, wait, he came up with this story and he produced this movie? I'm like, what? I'm like, how did he rope so many A-listers in? Were they that impressed by Titanic too? Yeah. But anyway, you're right. Paranormal Entity. That movie's terrible.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing. So that makes sense why they were like, hey, let's push for this to finally get a release. Yeah, nice. Yeah, so they're bunkering down. They're kind of barricading shit, and Pleasence is there, and he has a little sort of Shakespearean moment outside because he has a few of those.
I'm going to talk to them. Oh, come out here! The chop is
slash
ear off.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It does not work. It's fantastic. But that's Landau, isn't it? And then he sources an axe as well, which is great because I really, really like the main poster art for this, which is just the legs and the axe hanging down by the side. It's great. It's really evocative, and the O of the Alone, I think, is a moon.
The DVD cover was pretty terrible. The first DVD cover is pretty terrible.
They always were, though, weren't they? Everyone was like, oh, wow, look, this new fandangled thing called Photoshop, let's give it a go. And it always came out really badly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got the bit where Toni has her episode, and this... Yep. It's so strange, isn't it? Because this movie, for the most part, is kind of serious. It's kind of realistic, and I think that's why it kind of gets under your skin a bit. And the thought of being trapped in your own home, which is meant to be a safe space anyway, evokes loads of horrible emotions. But this moment it's kind of cheap, isn't it? When it's like, oh, we've thrown in that, oh yes, I used to have sort of traumatic episodes, and then they just have this jump scare of a monster covered in Rice Krispies.
I'm looking at the picture of it now. It does look like someone who's burnt, like radiation burns.
So that must be it. Yeah. I mean, we don't get time to. I mean, we have to, work that out after the fact. But
also,
it's cheap.
Also, I swear this is the last thing I'm going to mention about posters.
Yeah,
there's a poster for this movie. It is Donald Pleasence in his chef outfit from the dream sequence.
No, not in the beginning.
Like cutting something in half, and I'm like, that's not what happened.
That's misleading.
Also,
super misleading.
Actually, another one. You're right. The one with the axe is cool, but someone has gone in and they added like Martin Landau in a nice suit from a completely different movie, and Jack Palance in a nice suit from a completely different movie. I'm like, they're not dressed like that.
Do you know, it's
anyway.
funny, those two, Palance and Landau, also did all these little weird horrors together. Because have you ever seen Without Warning?
No, I've heard
the
about
alien
it.
One.
Yeah.
So
I
they're
think,
both in that as well, playing again crazy people.
Joe from Movie Dumpster. I think he said like
Oh, yeah.
a lot of Predator came from that.
Yeah, it's like the sort of pre-Predator. It's basically the same story, but it's a very good one. I've done an episode on that, but it's just weird. It's the same too. Because they obviously both went on to win Oscars, but they had this little weird 80s moment where they were like, "Hey, buddy, should we do another little B movie?" Yeah, sure. And I suppose it's great because they get to overact in these sort of movies, and you can tell they love doing that. But this is kind of the big climax now, because they get their way in there, don't they? And Elster, I like Lila. Each family member gets their moment.
Yeah.
That's what I like. They each get a moment with a knife to take down a baddie.
Yes. They kind of team up on the big guy.
Yeah.
It was kind of hectic. I guess they got like a knife in his head, and then Tom.
The kid slices his knees.
Yes. And they put a knife in his head, and I think Tom hits him with like a bat or something. He like hammers the knife into his head more. And I like when he like is walking out of the room, he looks back like, ah,
yeah,
he's like,
no fair.
And then just dies.
And yeah, there's a lot of that. I think it's like a machete in his chest, and then he baseball bats it, and it comes through his back, which is horrible. Yes, it's really good.
Landau, they thought died earlier in the basement.
That's right, because we get the extra scare.
Because there was like a
later.
burning, and then he comes out, and then they stab him in the back, and they throw him back in the basement. So I assume he's dead, or he's at least bleeding out. Right. And they lock it. But then this is where we get our twist with Tom.
Oh, and even though I knew it was coming, the way they do it is so effective, because we know this Tom that she's brought with her from jail, this other protester, is hugging her really tightly. Yeah. And it's the amount, we just see the blood start to drip down her face, and she almost doesn't notice it for so long. And it's a lot of blood. And it's, honestly, I think it's just one of the best and most awesome twists. And when it happens, you kind of go, "Oh my God, I could have worked that out," but you're not given given the pointers.
It's the opposite of Valentine.
Yes.
Where when that happens at Valentine, you go like, "Yeah, well, I knew he was the killer the whole time." Yeah. Like, I don't like. I've been kind of just waiting for it. Like, oh yeah, he's bleeding. Yeah, like I know. But here it's like, oh yeah, I forgot there was another guy.
The bleeder. But also just clearly he's so renowned, so it makes you, because even the mother goes, "It's the bleeder," and so it makes you just realize that this guy must have done some really bad stuff, because he's in the pop culture, people also know the bleeder. Him
being shy, now we know he could turn that on and off. If he wanted to, he could turn that off and be like,
part of his shtick.
Yeah. He wants people to think that he's a shy dude, so he could trick them when he's like all like, "Hey, how you doing, lady? I hate nuclear power. Let's hang out."
Yeah, that was some quick thinking. I mean, he's been out for like an hour from the insane asylum, and he's like, "Right, what shall I infiltrate?" It's very good. It all works perfectly. But yeah, as you say, we get Preacher coming back because they always come back for one last scare, don't they?
One last kill. Yeah. They lock him in there, and they think it's all good, and then boom. Jack Palance is there with this crossbow. Yeah. And I liked him being like, what is it? He's just like, "Yeah, we all kill." Like, we're all killers.
Right. Yeah, and then there's that almost touching moment when the power comes back on, and it's the news report, and we see the doctor that they think the new doctor's killed. And so you see the moment.
Why didn't that doctor be like, "Hey guys, I'm going away. You're going to have..."
That's a very good point. Why why the in the middle of the night disappearing? You're going to your new job. Why not? Like, but you remember, this is my last week, everyone. Remember that.
Yeah.
And each day reminding them.
And he should know. He should have been like, hey, I know they're Voyagers and they're all special and we love them,
Yes.
but they're probably going to take this a little hard. Might want to
Yeah.
up their sedatives for a week or two. Okay,
Yes.
maybe put them in confinement because they're not going to take this well. Instead, he's like, yes, those 4 gentlemen who could kill at any moment, who love me and look up to me. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
What the hell,
See
dude?
ya.
Yeah,
Taxi.
see you, bye.
But we see that moment where Palance. Wait, is it Palance or is it? Wait, I get
Yeah.
so confused. Yeah, it is. Where he sees that moment that he was wrong, and he kind of just you see the guilt hit him.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I mean, he is a crazy person, and
He is a crazy person, but yeah, you can tell like he thought what he was doing was noble to avenge this guy.
Right.
The people he was killing, their collateral damage to avenge this noble thing. But then he realized, like, oh, I fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, oops.
A
Probably
lot
shouldn't have-
of people are dead.
a lot of people are dead. I probably shouldn't have killed them.
Yes. If they could have just got the doctor on the phone to prove he was alive, all of this could have been
Well, he
avoided.
asked him, he's like, please just call the goddamn hospital.
Yes,
They'll
that's
tell
right.
you he's alive. And they're like, that guy's lying. We're not even going to humor it.
Not going to check that. And we didn't mention earlier, but there's a great moment in a punk bar.
Right,
and I love 80s movies punk bars because they look like the grungiest, rockiest, yet safest place. They always look really sort of, everyone's nice and happy, but it's rock crazy metal.
My favorite is the one in Trancers.
Oh my god,
where the
I
punk
just
band,
watched it at Christmas. Yes.
Yeah, the punk band is singing like Jingle Bells.
Yes.
It's like, oh yeah, that's the one I want to party at.
That-
Or
rock
the punk,
on.
Or the punk bar in Wild at Heart, where they'll play like
I don't
heavy
remember
metal punk stuff, but then they'll stop and let Nicolas Cage do an Elvis song.
Of
Yeah,
course,
you're right.
yes.
Like they're like the strangest kinds of punk stuff you'll find.
It's great. Everyone's just so happy in
Yeah.
these hardcore punk bars
Well,
in movies.
that's where the movie ends.
Yeah, right.
Jack
So we get this
Palance-
coda.
Yeah. Jack Palance is like, well, I gotta dance this off. I gotta dance this off at the punk bar.
I've always wanted to go. It's one of those.
Yeah, he beats up the doorman.
Yes,
Yeah,
and everyone
he beats up the
claps.
doorman. Everyone's thrilled about it. But yeah, so at some point he got a gun and there's this girl who I think kind of knows him or is aware
Well,
of him.
I was wondering if she was an inmate who just since she's been out has just been in that punk bar all the time.
Was that the woman from the hospital who was like, I'll turn into something?
My
if I don't-"
testings will.
Yeah, was that her?
I think it's either her or one of them. I think because he knows her, and I think she's literally been partying for 12 hours since the blackout started, and she's been there. And then
Yeah, and it ends with him about to put a gun to her head, and then the movie just ends.
Yeah, but she's all right about it, so that's what made me think. I think she's one of them.
Yeah, she's one of them.
She's one of them. But also, I did read, and that's the film. Amazing. It's really, really good, and I do recommend it. But I read a little interview with Jack Shoulder saying that it was meant to be also a bit of a comment on society and how we call, we're happy to go, these are what crazy people are. And they're, like the bleeder and stuff like that. But then it also shows you how easily they can blend into normal society. And actually, so who are we to say what's right and what's wrong? And
also,
if you're like this, you should be in this building. And
I think it is critical of how people with issues were kind of down, how they just grouped them all together. It's like, no. It's like what like special needs education was for a bit. It's like, just throw them all together. It's like, well, some are operating on different levels than others. Like, it's like before it was just like, send them to the loony bin, or like, I'll just group them all into the same class. It's like, no. We gotta really we gotta separate them a little bit more. I don't think we should be grouping them all together. Because again, we probably shouldn't have the prisoner of war who was probably tortured and forced into killing with the pedophile. Like, maybe don't put them together. It's different
Yeah.
than a prison, right? Like, this isn't a prison, really.
No, it's more of a rehab, isn't it? Like, you're not going to have, a tax evader with a child killer in the same.
Yeah.
And it's like, you both did bad things. It's like, well, yes, but
Well, it's different in prison where it's like, well, you're all sane. You just broke the law. This one, like, these people are all insane. So it's like, okay.
Right.
But no, because speaking of mental asylums, around in Pennsylvania, there's a place called Penhurst Asylum. And now it is a fun Halloween attraction because nothing is more respectful than putting spooky monsters in what was once a gigantic mental facility that was horribly mismanaged and had to be shut down.
Oh, that is not tasteful.
Yeah. But yeah, that was like a very famous. Well, they shut down a lot of the federal run hospitals here. I think there's like a whole thing about that. But yeah, Penhurst Asylum was like famous for just being like awful. It's like terrible. And I remember I broke into it in 2008 before it was an attraction. Right. And that was like one of the scariest places I've ever been. They have tunnels.
No.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I didn't go into the tunnels. I didn't go into the tunnel. Turns out there were
Hill.
Yeah, there were other people in the building, and we all got scared and we ran away before we even got to. I think they were just like us. I think they were just
right. Not some like leftover inmates.
No, I don't think it was leftover inmates.
That they didn't see.
But yeah, that's one thing. They had tunnels because they would have to transfer people from building to building. Right. And it's in rural Pennsylvania. And they're like, well, we don't want them breaking out and running into the woods. So we got to transfer them through the tunnels so they have nowhere to go.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, now those tunnels, you and the whole family get to walk around and be like, oh, scary monster. Whereas like years ago, there's probably someone shitting themselves there.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Again, it's the weird to see that place when it was like an abandoned, decrepit place and now a Halloween attraction. I'm like, well, what does this say about us, really?
Right. Yes. As a society, what literally look at what we've done here.
I had a girlfriend in Philly. There used to be Byberry, like an asylum. It's since been shut down. There's literally only one building left, and it's been turned into something else. But they got rid of the asylum, and they turned it into 55 and older homes. And an ex of mine lived in one of them with her mom, and I would freak her out all the time. I'd just be in a room like, oh, just think about it. Like, there's probably a crazy guy like smearing poop all over there, and she's like, stop reminding me. I'm like, God, I hope you don't believe in ghosts, because like,
because this place will light up.
Yeah, and you can't reason with these ghosts depending on what they did. Like, you don't know.
Yeah,
it would drive her freaking nuts. She's like, stop bringing up that my house was an insane asylum.
Yeah, no shit. It's funny, isn't it? Because I think that would scare me. And it's not that I think a ghost would get me, but it's just knowing what went on there, or not knowing what went on there. That stuff totally gets me because it's just atmosphere, isn't it? Atmosphere.
Yeah. Yes. I never got to go into Byberry, but Penhurst is something else. If you're ever in Pennsylvania around Halloween, go to Penhurst Asylum, because it's literally haunted attraction in the buildings, and then there's like one or two buildings that are like a museum. They're like, this is how terrible it used to be. Here's the shitty cots that we had and some of the old furniture. Check it out.
An exit through the gift shop. Thank you.
Please exit through the gift shop. Like, okay.
Oh man, Tony, I'm so glad I got you on for this film, because I'm so glad you appreciated it. I'm
so glad you finally got me to watch this thing, because now I have the review of Valentine coming out. I'm gonna text my co-host who did that movie with me, and be like, hey, I know where the bloody nose came from now.
Yeah.
It's a good one. I think more people need to see this one for sure.
Agreed.
Yes.
Thank you. And tell everyone where they can find you and your stuff.
You can find me in the football stadium of The Dark Knight Rises. I'm there. You can't see me, but I'm there. But if you want to see
invisible.
If you want to see me more easily, Hack the Movies on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We do a weekly review show where we talk about movies, new and old. Lately, we've been doing live shows, so occasionally there's going to be 2 episodes a week. We used to do 2 episodes a week. That got way too hard, so we stopped doing that. But now that I can do live episodes that require less editing, I'm going to start doing more live episodes. Maybe I'll have you on at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great. You have a great
yeah.
setup as well. I love it.
Yes.
It's so nostalgic. I just feel like
Yes.
I'm back in one of my childhood videos.
In a video store. Yeah, and it's a fun time. I do smaller videos throughout the week. I've started doing those like tiny little video essays. I've really been going through a lot of work prints. I've gone through a bunch recently. I did like the Hellraiser 4 one, the Halloween.
Where'd you source that?
A fan. Like a lot, you could look a lot of. They're probably easy to find, but I have one fan that just like knows where to find them.
That's great.
I did one on both work prints for Halloween Resurrection when it was still Halloween the Homecoming. And recently I did them for Friday the 13th Part 4 and Jason Goes to Hell. I watched the Jason Goes to Hell work print with the big giant demon that they cut out of the movie.
Yes.
Oh, watch my video and you'll learn all about that.
I'm gonna do that.
Yep. And I'm also on Twitch and Patreon. Sorry, Twitch and Patreon.
Oh, no. And what's the handle?
Twitch.tv/hackthemovies and patreon.com/hackthemovies.
There you go. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And just keep doing what you're doing because it's fantastic and I can't wait to watch everything you put out, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'd love to come back at some point.
Oh, you will. That's it. Your family now.
Okay, cool. You're inviting me like Toni invited Tom into her family. I'm sure it'll work out just the same.
Come for dinner. And then the lights go out. Yeah, thank you, man. I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, bye.
There we go. Thank you so much, Toni. What an awesome and hilarious guest. Make sure to go and subscribe to Hack the Movies and get devouring his amazing back catalogue of content. Next week, for the final episode of this season, we're heading to 1987 to get scared stiff by the movie Scared Stiff, directed by Doom Asylum director Richard Friedman. The movie is currently streaming on Arrow Player and is available on all good VOD services. Until then, rotters, toodles!